Hey, my brothers and sisters. So I just want to get to this video. Usually I have like a little introduction, checking out how you're doing, the week is going, but you've already read the title. Yeah, God delivered me from porn. And it might sound small. It might sound like, that's not a big thing, but I'm here to tell you that when God delivers you, there is nothing, hallelujah, that can ever come against you being delivered, okay? God, you fight your battles, okay? The horse goes to the battle, but it's God that delivers you, okay? He delivers you in that battle. So you might fight, but there's such a difference between being delivered. And sorry about that. I just wanted to make a video outside, so you might hear some helicopters, cars driving by, things like that. So hopefully it doesn't get too loud, and I don't know how long this video is going to be. So I really hope that this blesses whoever watches this, and to know that God will work it out, and God has the power. He's mighty, and what he has for you is so amazing. So I'm going to go ahead and get to this. And always remember, my brothers and sisters, Jesus really does love you, and that's why he delivers you, okay? He delivers you because he really wants the best for you in your life. So, so let's just kind of go back here. You can have a little bit of a story about me, who I am, and, why this was so significant in my life. So growing up in my life, sex was something that I was introduced at a very, very young age. I was molested, supposedly, I should say, at this particular time. When you're a kid, sometimes somebody might say something you might have memory of, or you might not. So when I was younger, I think at like 2 years old, I was sexually molested, and so sex was something that was around. It wasn't something that was uncommon, as in what was being seen on TV, and also just the upbringing with family members and things like that. So I remember that porn, okay. The first time that I seen porn, I think I was around maybe 9 years old. And, I don't know how old you are watching this, but my age, we had VHSs and tapes. So that was the first time that I seen porn. And when I seen it, it wasn't something that was shown like, this is bad. It was more like, hey, when you get old enough, it's okay. Right now, hide it. But when you get old, when you're 21 years old, you can do that. So 9 years old, started watching porn, but at this time it wasn't accessible without you purchasing it, or having a family member. And that's the time I had family members that had VHS tapes. So so sex, and again, y'all just flow with me here, okay? Because I'm smiling, but at the same time, I just want to make sure, not that I'm doing something perfect, but that I'm fully being transparent. Because ultimately, when I'm sharing my testimony here, I really hope that it does help the person listening to this, male or female, because we all struggle with something. There's a lot of men and a lot of female out there that might not understand the severity of porn and what it really does to you as an individual, and also into your relationships as you get older and have commitments in your life. So during this time, at 9 years old, I wasn't really truly having sex, but I was still watching porn if I had time to go and watch it. Now, at the age of 13, I started to, have sex, things like that. But at the same time, porn was definitely still involved. And I actually started to make my own porn, okay, things like that, because I thought it was okay. Also, it was something that I can touch, and it wasn't me necessarily wanting to look at someone else. It was more me wanting to look at myself. So this was, to me, it was normal. I was always this person that was in school. I was never ashamed of the body, right? It was nothing that it was shameful. So if people talked about it, or if people mentioned porn, masturbation, the things that go in between it, I was never a person to be like, ew, no, that's disgusting. I was like, this is normal. And again, because me at such a young age and being introduced to it, there wasn't anything wrong with it until you got to the appropriate age, because it was said like, this is a part of life. This is natural. Oh, you see the trees, right? It's natural. So this is what you're supposed to do in your life. And as we all know, I'm going to get to that in a moment here, but as we know, it is natural, but it's definitely more than what you see. There's so much more to it. So with me making porn, it was something that in my mind, I wanted to be like a porn star. Okay, I wanted that. I didn't know how I would ever have it, but I was willing to do that. And but it was, at this time I think I was like 14 years old, so it wasn't anything of really being exposed to that type of industry. But I have always wanted to do more. I was like an extreme person. If I did something, it was extreme. I didn't do it for like a lightweight type of thing. If I go at something, it was extreme. And again, I love making these videos because I know God made me who I am. And it took time to be delivered to see that the extreme me, it's okay, but because it's now aligned with God, okay? But hey, again, my brothers and sisters, just go along, just follow what I'm, if you're still watching it, God bless you. Hopefully this is a little, not entertaining, but just you're here, okay? So through high school, porn was something that the penalties, it wasn't a lot. It was like sex had a major penalty to it than porn. So I would rather have porn in my life at that time than sex, because sex came with responsibilities, sex came with, relationships, sex came with children. I mean, all these other things, all the stuff that came with physical. So porn was something that was easier to obtain in my mind. And it makes me think right now about the rejection, because though I was molested at a young age, I was always still rejected sexually. I understood sex and felt like I needed it, felt like I wanted it, but I was rejected physically. So the porn allowed something to be open for me not to have a rejection. It was actually a choice. I can choose to reject. Instead of me being rejected, I can reject. And having that sense of power, it made it even more easier to do. And especially me creating and making my own porn, right? So I can reject instead of being rejected. And, rejection is such a big thing in our life, is because when you're rejected, you have a sense, pride comes in, and then with pride can be formed in a lot of different ways, from fear, from anger, things like that. So for me, the rejection turned into, my pride was like control, but it was also control with what I wanted to hide and then what I wanted for people to see. And that just all made sense. So I'm just getting to the point. Okay, from the age of 9 years old to high school, making, porn, watching porn. I remember even this time, when I bought my first like nice car, I think I was 18 or 17, and this car had like a TV in there. So this is when TVs first were in your car. I remember watching porn while I drove. I mean, it was just normal, and then I was putting that into friends' lives and sharing, my porn with others. Not understanding, right? Not understanding what this was causing and the hardship and just the things that it was opening, right? And again, if I'm not all about somebody sitting here saying you got to go through it to experience it, absolutely not. This is the reason why I make this video, and I'm glad to make this video, is because if somebody's struggling with porn, and when we get a little further here, hopefully you don't get that far, okay? Because it can really take you into a totally different direction and really suck your life from you, okay? So, very simple, right? Porn. If you're watching this, you probably clicked on this video for a reason, is because maybe you have been delivered from it, or maybe you're struggling with that, okay? So let's just kind of go a little bit more deeper, but not from the basic. So for me, porn became a remedy. If it was something that, if I was in relationships, if I couldn't get my way, I would watch porn. I would keep archives. And that's another thing, my brothers and sisters, I want to bring up, okay? Like, I don't know if y'all keep archives, but I would keep archives. So even though I would be in other relationships, things like that, I would still keep old memories. Even I wasn't in these relationships anymore, but I still kept these archives, because keeping data felt like control, right? It felt like power. Archives, hard drives, backups, like backup, plan B, plan C, if plan A don't work, plan B is going to work. If plan B don't work, plan C. So that's what these archives were in my life. I created a whole database of porn archives. And I think people do that too as well. I'm not saying they make their own porn, but they have archives of porn. Okay, so me having this archive of this porn, it was just everything at my fingertips before the sites were free. This was before you could just go to a website and not have to enter some type of subscription or go to a store and purchase, so I already had my own database of storage at my hands. But it became a remedy. And what I mean by that was, there was times in my life as a grown man, okay, I'm in my 30s now, and I'm going to get to the point when God delivered me, but there were times in my life in my 20s, okay, that I would masturbate without even watching porn over 15 times or 20 times a day, to the point that there was nothing even coming out of me. It was just like, I don't even know. It was like, it wasn't like I was mad, angry, frustrated, things like that. It was like a sense of release, because it wasn't happening with me at home. And even if it did happen at home, there was still more. And when I say that as a remedy, it's a substitute. So a lot of us were and are addicted to things in our life, and it becomes a gateway to something that was more. So sex, for me, I wasn't one of those gentlemen that was having sex with multiple people, like other friends that I had. They had multiple women, things like that. I didn't have that. So for me, I just had multiple, porn, right? And that goes back to the rejection part. It was me being rejected physically. So it was a false reality of me creating something that would perish ultimately, which was creating this archived database of porn. So now when we look at where we are, and I'm not going to point this at the people that are watching, but we have to really understand we're at a point now that you don't need an archive. You don't need a database. You don't need those type of things. You can just click on the site and go. I haven't been to these sites in a long time because this is not a struggling addiction anymore. God truly delivered me from this. Okay, God delivered me from that. So I'm going to talk about the deliverance of it. Okay, so this was in 2020 when I first had my encounter with my Abba. I didn't know that I was encountering God, but all I know is my life was changing in such a major way. So all my archives, God removed everything from my life. Everything from my life he removed. And physically removed and mentally removed. So the physical part was gone. And then it was the mental. So in 2020, I stopped watching porn. Though I was in no relationships, I couldn't watch it anymore. It wasn't like I was listening to someone say, be celibate. What's the word that they use now? Like monk mode. You have some people out there talking about like monk mode or what's the word? Retention. Like, sperm retention, things like that. So I wasn't doing this to like benefit my body. I wasn't doing this to become more organic. I literally there was something inside of me that was saying, you need to stop masturbating and you need to stop watching porn. Now, when I stopped watching this, I didn't have a relationship with God yet because I wasn't in his word. Okay, I wasn't talking to him. I definitely didn't have any idea about him, though I knew of him before. But in 2020, it was completely not that. Okay, but again, porn watching, it just didn't exist anymore. It wasn't something that I even wanted, but it would happen in my dreams. I would still have, sexual intercourse, things like that in my dreams. So I couldn't understand. It was like, well, I didn't want it in the physical, and I was fine without it. But in the dreams, it would happen. Now, I wasn't looking forward to these dreams, but it would just happen. And I would have like wet dreams a lot at that time. I mean, it was unbearable type of wet dreams. I mean, before 2020, I could count on my hand that maybe it's happened 3 times from the age of like 13 years old until 30. But when this time when I stopped it, it was like it was repeated. Now again, like I was telling you, my brothers and sisters, at a point in time, it was 20 to 23 times in a day, and 23 times in one moment. Okay, So, and I smile now because again, I'm gonna get to the reference in the Bible of why we need to do these things and why we need to share them. Okay, so in 2020, it just I didn't want it anymore, but I was still dreaming this, and now where I am understanding that those are demonic, right? They're demonic dreams, things like that are coming in. Okay, so I was still doing other things that were opening doors, but when it came to sex, when it came to masturbation, porn, it was no go. Now, fast forward, 2022. During this time, enemy was in my mind saying like, hey, you know what? you're not going to have anything good in your life. Like, all the good in your life, it was when you were doing that. Like, all the good in your life, when you had, this type of woman, when you had porn, all that, that's in your past. But now, everything you're going to have is ugly. That's what the enemy was telling me. And I believed it. I was like, man, what I'm going to have is ugly. But I was okay. I was like, whatever. I don't care, because if that's what I'm going to have, if God is going to just give me this, it's cool, because I